Sometimes the loudest conversations happen in silence. Have you ever felt that, my friends? That strange pull towards someone who hasn't called, texted, or shown up in months, yet somehow they're still living rent-free in your mind. You wake up, go to work, talk to people, smile at the world, but deep inside, there's a quiet whisper of their name echoing somewhere between your heart and your thoughts. And you start wondering, why? Why can't I stop thinking about them? Why do they appear in random songs, dreams, or even the silence before sleep? Before we dive deep into this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me till the end, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you look at love, memory, and connection forever. Now, imagine this, folks. Imagine you're walking through a vast, empty hallway, and every footstep you take sends back an echo. But this echo doesn't fade. It follows you, softly, constantly. That's what it feels like when someone lives in your mind without communication. They become the echo in your emotional hallway. Not loud enough to drown you, but always loud enough to remind you they were once here. You see, the world often tells us if they wanted to talk, they would, or if they cared, they'd come back. But here's the truth most people don't realize. Connection doesn't vanish just because contact does. The human heart isn't a switch you flip off when someone stops replying. It's a frequency, and once two hearts have shared that same frequency, the signal lingers long after the conversation ends. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And if that's true, then every thought you've ever had of that person has painted a little piece of your soul. That's why you can't just forget. You're not broken. You're just still colored by an experience that mattered. But let's get real for a second. Sometimes we overthink it. We replay the moments, the messages, the way they laughed, like an emotional Netflix series that never ends. You keep waiting for a new episode, but none comes. And yet, you still tune in. Why? Because your mind is still holding on to the meaning you gave that story. Here's the hard truth, folks. Sometimes you're not in love with the person anymore. You're in love with the feeling they once gave you. The comfort, the spark, the emotional high that made you feel alive. And your brain. It's addicted to that feeling like a song stuck on replay. But you're not powerless. You can change the tune. Let's break another lie while we're here. They told you that thinking about someone means you're weak. Nonsense. It means you're human. The Stoics taught that emotions are natural visitors. It's attachment that makes them permanent residents. Feel the thought, but don't rent its space. Watch it like a cloud passing by. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to fear it. Just let it drift. And here's a bit of fun truth. Sometimes the person who lives in your mind is actually teaching you something about yourself. They're like a spiritual gym trainer, forcing your emotional muscles to grow stronger through the pain. Funny, right? You thought they broke you, but they actually built the version of you who's watching this right now. So don't run from the thought of them. Don't drown in it either. Sit with it, let it teach you, then let it go. Because if someone is always in your mind without communication, it's not always a curse. It's sometimes a sign. A sign that you felt something real, that your heart still believes in deep connection, and that you, my friend, have a soul big enough to love beyond logic. So as we dive into this journey today, remember this: the one who stays in your mind might just be the reason you find yourself again. Write this in the comments. I choose peace. Say it, own it, become it. And before we go deeper, don't forget to press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because the truth I'm about to share next might just set your heart free. Number 1. The echo of connection. Energy doesn't disappear, it only changes form. That's not just physics, my friends, that's the emotional truth. When you've shared a bond so deep that it touches the soul, that energy doesn't vanish just because communication stops. It lingers. It hums beneath your daily routine like background music you can't turn off. You might not see them, talk to them, or even know where they are, but somehow their presence feels stitched into the air around you. Imagine this. You walk into a quiet room, but somehow you can still hear the faint echo of laughter that isn't there anymore. The scent of a memory floats through, the kind that doesn't fade even when you try to erase it. That's what it feels like when someone lives in your mind without words or presence. They've left fingerprints on your consciousness. Every thought becomes an echo of what was once shared, a ghostly melody of energy that refuses to fade. And you ask yourself, why do they still feel so close? Why do I still sense their energy when they're not even near me? Why does silence still sound like their name? The truth is, you're not imagining it. You're just feeling what most people are too afraid to admit. That energy between two connected souls doesn't obey human timelines. It doesn't care about who stopped calling first. It doesn't fade just because pride got in the way. You see, folks, the world will tell you they're gone. Move on, forget them. But Stoicism teaches something far more powerful. It teaches awareness. You don't silence the echo by pretending it isn't there. You listen to it without letting it control you. The problem isn't that they're in your mind. The problem is that you've mistaken their echo for your own voice. Think about that for a moment. Every time they cross your mind, your heart speeds up, your chest tightens, and a question rises. What if they're thinking of me too? And maybe they are. Maybe the same silence that haunts you whispers your name somewhere else, in another heart. But here's the hard truth. You can't live your life waiting for someone else's echo to stop bouncing back. You have to find your own sound again. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was simple. Stop trying to control whether they return. Stop trying to mute the memories. Instead, control how you respond to them. Because real peace doesn't come from deleting the past. It comes from mastering the meaning you attach to it. Here's where most people get trapped. They mistake emotional energy for destiny. Just because you can still feel them doesn't mean you're meant to be together. Sometimes energy lingers not because it's meant to last, but because it has something left to teach you. Sometimes the lesson is patience. Sometimes it's detachment. And sometimes it's simply to remind you of the kind of love you're capable of giving. But I get it. It's not easy. You tell yourself, if they're meant to be gone, why do I still feel them? You question your sanity. You fight your own heart. You pray for silence in a place that keeps replaying the same emotional song. Yet this is where strength is built. This is where the Stoic within you awakens. Because detachment doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you stop letting what you feel destroy your peace. Let's be honest, folks. It's scary to let go of someone you still feel connected to. It feels like pulling a thread that might unravel your entire sense of self. You fear that if you stop thinking of them, you'll lose the last piece of what you shared. But the truth is, you don't lose them by letting go. You lose yourself by holding on too tightly. Think of energy like water. When it's flowing, it's alive. When it's forced to stay still, it stagnates. The energy of your connection was never meant to be a prison. It was meant to move, to transform, to evolve into something higher. Maybe that energy now needs to fuel your purpose, your creativity, your self-love. Because when you stop chasing their echo, you start hearing your own voice again. There's a quote I love, "You can't heal in the same place that broke you." And that means sometimes the only way to honor the connection is to free it, to stop revisiting old conversations in your head and start creating new ones with life itself. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you choose to focus on yourself instead of the silence, you reclaim a piece of your power. So if they're always in your mind, my friends, don't see it as weakness. See it as proof that you have the capacity to love deeply, to connect beyond surface level, to feel beyond reason. That's rare in this world. But don't let that depth trap you. Let it strengthen you. This is what Stoic wisdom looks like. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about channeling them. You turn longing into learning. You turn missing someone into understanding yourself. Because the ultimate goal isn't to forget, it's to remember without pain. And maybe, just maybe, the reason they still echo in your mind is because the universe wants you to learn that the love you thought came from them was always meant to awaken within you. So the next time their thought crosses your heart, don't fight it, don't run. Smile and whisper to yourself, that was real, that mattered, but I'm still moving forward. Because that's what strength looks like, acknowledging the echo, but continuing to walk your own path. Write this in the comments, my friends. I choose my peace. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world around you. Let them see that silence doesn't break you, it builds you. And stay with me, because what comes next might just shift how you see love, energy, and destiny forever. Number 2. The lie of forgetting. The heart doesn't move on just because the mind says so. That's the lie most people live under, my friends. The idea that healing means erasing, that peace means pretending it never mattered. They tell you, just forget about them. But let's be real. If forgetting were that easy, humanity wouldn't write poetry, music, and entire movies about the ones they couldn't forget. We remember because something in us refuses to delete the part of our story that changed us. Imagine walking through a garden where a beautiful tree once stood. One day, it's gone, cut down, removed, vanished. But when you look at the ground, the soil still remembers. The roots still reach down, invisible but alive. You can cover them, build over them, plant something new. But deep below, the earth remembers what grew there. That's what your soul does too. It remembers. You see, forgetting isn't healing. It's denial. It's pretending the experience didn't shape you, pretending that the person who once made you feel something real was just a dream. But here's the truth that the Stoics understood. Healing begins not when you forget, but when you accept. When you can look at that memory without flinching, when you can hear their name and not collapse inside, that's real peace. But here's why it's so hard, folks. Because the world glorifies emotional amnesia. People say, block them, delete them, distract yourself. And while yes, boundaries are sacred, pretending someone never mattered is like cutting out a chapter of your own life and wondering why the story doesn't make sense anymore. The goal isn't to erase the chapter, it's to understand why it was written. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's the core of Stoic wisdom. You can't erase a person from your past, but you can rewrite your relationship with what they meant. Instead of seeing them as a wound, see them as a teacher. Instead of seeing their silence as rejection, see it as redirection. Because when you shift your meaning, you shift your power. Let's be honest, it hurts because you're fighting what is. You keep asking, why can't I stop thinking about them? Why can't I move on? But every time you resist the thought, you feed it. You can't defeat what you refuse to face. That's why the Stoics didn't run from emotion. They faced it like warriors of the soul. They allowed the storm to pass through them without becoming the storm. And sometimes, folks, that means sitting in the discomfort, sitting in that silence where their voice used to be, sitting in that space where their messages used to come through, and realizing you can still breathe, You can still laugh, you can still rise, because you were never meant to forget. You were meant to outgrow. Here's what no one tells you. Forgetting someone doesn't prove you're strong. Remembering them without pain does. That's the real test of emotional mastery. It's the ability to say, yes, they were a part of me, but I am whole without them. That's what Stoic love looks like. It's not bitter, it's balanced. It honors what was, without being trapped by it. Picture this. You're holding onto a rope. The harder you pull to keep the past close, the more your hands bleed. But the moment you release it, the pain stops. Not because the rope disappeared, but because you stopped fighting the pull. That's what letting go truly means. It's not forgetting the rope, it's realizing you don't need to hold on to prove it existed. And here's the beauty in that, my friends. When you finally stop trying to erase them, something amazing happens. You start remembering yourself. The parts of you that dimmed in their presence begin to shine again. The laughter that once depended on them starts returning from within. That's when you realize you were never really missing them. You were missing you. So don't let anyone shame you for remembering. Memories aren't chains, they're mirrors. They show you who you were, what you loved, and how far you've come. You don't destroy memories to move on. You polish them until they no longer hurt to touch. And maybe, just maybe, you'll reach a point where their face appears in your mind, and instead of sadness, you'll whisper, "Thank you." Because even if they left behind lessons, growth, strength, and maybe that's exactly what they were meant to do. Write this in the comments, my friends. I remember, but I rise. Say it to remind yourself that your memories are not prisons. They're proof that you have a heart capable of deep love and deep healing. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world. Because healing isn't pretending it never happened. It's walking forward with grace, carrying only the lessons, not the pain. And stay with me, because what comes next will reveal why your mind refuses to let go and how to finally turn that obsession into peace. Number 3. When the mind refuses to let go. The more you try to forget, the deeper your mind digs in to remember. Strange, isn't it? You tell yourself it's over. You delete the photos, you mute their name, but still, somehow, they sneak into your thoughts like uninvited guests. You could be laughing with friends or staring out the window at nothing, and suddenly their memory slides in, unannounced, unstoppable, and unfair. It's like your mind refuses to obey your heart's decision. Imagine your brain as a house, my friends, filled with doors. You close one, thinking you've sealed it forever, but late at night, it creaks open on its own. Inside, the light flickers, and there they are, laughing, smiling, saying something you can't unhear. You try to walk away, but that door keeps opening again and again. That's not weakness. That's your mind doing what minds do. It tries to process what your heart never got closure for. You see, your thoughts aren't betraying you, they're begging you to understand something. The reason your mind keeps revisiting them is because there's still energy left unresolved. There's something you haven't made peace with, maybe a word unsaid, a goodbye that never happened, or the haunting silence that left too many questions unanswered. Your mind isn't obsessed, it's unfinished. But here's where people get trapped. They confuse mental persistence with destiny. They think, if I can't stop thinking about them, maybe it means something. Maybe it does, but not always in the way you think. Sometimes, your mind doesn't bring them up because they're meant to return. Sometimes, it brings them up because you're finally strong enough to heal what you couldn't face before. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that's what happens when your thoughts keep looping. They're not showing you the truth, they're showing you your fear of it. You replay the moments not because you miss them, but because you're afraid to admit that what you had is gone. You hope that if you replay it enough times, the ending will somehow change. But it never does it? Let's be honest, folks. The hardest battles aren't fought in the world. They're fought in the mind. You can stop talking to someone, but how do you stop thinking about them? You can't force your brain into silence. It doesn't respond to commands. It responds to meaning. That's why Stoicism teaches not suppression, but awareness. The moment you stop fighting the thought and start observing it, you take its power away. Imagine your thoughts as waves, constantly rolling toward you. When you try to stop them, you drown. But when you learn to float, to let them come and go, suddenly you're free. That's what emotional mastery looks like, not forcing the mind into stillness, but rising above its noise. And I get it, it's scary. Because silence after connection feels like withdrawal. You miss the dopamine, the routine, the messages, the voice that made you feel seen. You start to fear that without them, life will always feel half full. But here's the truth. What you miss isn't them. It's the version of you that felt alive in their presence. And that version still exists, waiting for you to come home. Your mind holds on because it believes remembering keeps you safe. It's like a guard dog that won't stop barking even when the threat is gone. It's not trying to hurt you, it's trying to protect you. But there comes a time when you have to gently tell your mind, it's okay now. I'm safe. I can let go. There's a quote that says, "You cannot heal what you refuse to feel." And that's why forgetting never works. Because healing isn't about deletion, it's about digestion. You have to sit with the thought, see it clearly, thank it for teaching you something, and then let it pass. Each time you resist less, it returns weaker. Until one day you realize you haven't thought about them in weeks. And it's not because you forced yourself to forget. It's because you no longer need to remember. You'll know you've healed when the thought of them feels like reading an old chapter, not a wound, but a story. You won't rush to close it, nor will you cling to it. You'll simply smile at how far you've come since then, because your mind can only let go when your heart finally feels safe again. So if your thoughts keep bringing them back, don't curse yourself. You're not broken, you're just human. Let the thought visit, but don't offer it a bed. Let it pass through like wind through an open window. Write this in the comments, my friends. I release what no longer belongs to me. Say it loud. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world. Because this is what true strength looks like. Not pretending you never cared, but caring enough to finally let go. And stay with me, because next we'll uncover the truth about the invisible thread that keeps two souls connected, even when words, time, and distance try to break it. Number 4. The invisible thread between souls. Sometimes the connection isn't physical, it's spiritual, and no amount of silence can cut that thread. Have you ever felt that strange pull towards someone, even when you haven't seen them in months? You go about your day, yet suddenly their name flashes in your mind, their face appears in your thoughts, and you can almost feel them. You don't know why, you don't know how, you just do. It's like your souls still speak a language your mouths no longer do. Imagine two stars connected by a thin beam of light. They may drift in different directions across the universe, but that beam remains, subtle yet unbreakable. That's what a real connection feels like, my friends. It's invisible to the eye, but undeniable to the spirit. You can't explain it, but you know it's there. You can't touch it, but you feel it in your gut, in your chest, in the silence between moments. And sometimes that thread becomes confusing, doesn't it? You wonder, why can't I let go of them? Why do I feel like they're still with me even though they're gone? You might even ask, are they feeling this too? That's the mystery of soul resonance. It doesn't obey human logic. You don't need constant conversation for a connection that was built on energy. Because when two souls truly meet, something deeper than words is exchanged. The Stoics believed that every person we meet is a part of our cosmic journey. Nothing happens by accident. Every connection, no matter how brief, carries meaning. But here's the truth most people miss. The thread between two souls isn't always meant to pull them back together. Sometimes it's meant to stretch you, to grow you, to test what your heart is capable of without possession. You see, folks, love isn't ownership, it's resonance. And resonance doesn't fade just because someone walks away. It transforms. That's the part that hurts, when the connection doesn't die, but changes shape. The energy you once shared begins to shift. It's not gone. It's evolving, teaching you how to love without clinging, how to remember without breaking, how to feel deeply without losing yourself. But here's where fear creeps in. You start thinking, if I stop feeling them, maybe it means it wasn't real. No, my friend. The opposite is true. Real love doesn't vanish. It integrates. It becomes part of you. You stop feeling them as a wound and start carrying them as wisdom. That's the invisible thread working its magic. It doesn't exist to keep you stuck. It exists to remind you that souls can touch without needing to stay. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." Think about that. Every emotion, every act of love, every piece of kindness you gave them, it echoes. It becomes energy that doesn't die, just transforms. You might think they've forgotten you, but energy doesn't forget. Every genuine connection leaves an imprint in the universe, and sometimes that's what you're feeling when you suddenly think of them. The echo of shared energy returning to its source. Here's the challenge, though. Most people mistake that energetic pull for a sign to chase. They think, maybe I should reach out. Maybe the universe is telling me to fix this. But the Stoic truth says otherwise. Not every pull means pursuit. Sometimes the pull is just a reminder to remain grateful for what was, not desperate for what could have been. When you feel that connection, pause, breathe. Don't run toward it, reflect within it. Ask yourself, what is this energy teaching me about myself? Because the truth is, the invisible thread doesn't exist to bind you. It exists to balance you. It's there to remind you that love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about growing strong enough to let go with peace in your heart. You can honor the bond without trying to recreate it. You can appreciate the connection without reopening old wounds. And maybe, just maybe, they feel it too. Maybe, somewhere in their quiet moments, they pause and think of you. Maybe they can't explain it either. But here's the secret. You don't need to know. You don't need proof. What's meant for you will never require you to beg for it, chase it, or decode signs to justify it. Real connections, like gravity, don't need validation. They just are. So if you feel that invisible thread tugging at your soul tonight, don't resist it. But don't worship it either. Smile at it. Honor it. Say to yourself, I was blessed to feel something this real. Because that's what most people never get to experience, a bond that lives beyond words. Write this in the comments, my friends. I trust the connection, but I choose my peace. Show yourself that you've learned the highest form of love, the kind that honors energy without attachment. And stay with me, because next we'll go even deeper into the silence itself. The part where no words are spoken, yet everything is still said. Number 5. Silence isn't emptiness, it's energy in motion. Silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of everything that words cannot hold. You see, my friends, most people fear silence. They think it means rejection, indifference, or the end of something that once mattered. But here's the truth. The silence after a deep connection isn't emptiness. It's movement, it's transformation, it's the space where energy shifts, grows, and finds its new form. Imagine an ocean after a storm. The waves finally calm, the noise fades, but underneath that still surface, the current is still alive, reshaping the seafloor, carrying life from one place to another. That's what silence does. It works beneath the surface. You can't see it, but it's changing things inside you. It's molding your strength, reshaping your emotional depth, and teaching you to listen, not to others, but to yourself. But let's be honest, it's not easy to sit with that kind of silence, because in today's world, silence feels like punishment. We're conditioned to believe that if they're not talking to us, something's wrong. If there's no message, it must mean we're forgotten. Yet sometimes, silence is the most divine communication there is. Sometimes, it's the universe's way of saying, "Be still, I'm working." You might ask, but why does it hurt so much? Why does their silence echo louder than their voice ever did? Because, my friends, your mind was trained to seek validation through noise. You're used to being seen, replied to, acknowledged. But silence forces you to face yourself, and that's where growth begins. Stoicism teaches that discomfort is the birthplace of strength. The silence you fear is the very space where your power is reborn. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful than your own soul." Think about that. You've spent so long waiting for someone else to break the silence, hoping for that text, that call, that apology. But the moment you stop chasing noise, you start hearing the quiet truth within yourself. The one that says, you never needed them to validate what you already were. Let me paint this picture for you. Imagine two people sitting by a fire. At first they talk, laugh, share stories. But after a while, the fire becomes their only light and sound. They sit in silence, but the connection is still there. It's just evolved. That's what happens when real connections mature. Silence doesn't mean it's over. It means the words are no longer enough. And here's where most people break. They mistake silence for being forgotten. They start overthinking. Did I do something wrong? Did they stop caring? No, my friends. Silence doesn't always mean absence. It means distance for reflection. It's the universe clearing the space so both souls can grow separately before reconnecting, if ever they're meant to. And sometimes that silence is permanent, not as a loss, but as a lesson. The Stoic mind doesn't resist silence, it embraces it. It understands that not every echo deserves an answer, and not every silence needs to be filled. Because true power lies in being okay when nothing happens, when there's no message, no update, no validation, and yet you're at peace. That's the kind of strength that can't be shaken. Let's be real, it's uncomfortable at first. You'll pick up your phone and stare at the screen, waiting for a notification that never comes. You'll check old messages, hoping for a sign of life. But eventually, the silence will start speaking to you in a different way. It will tell you, you are healing. It will whisper, you don't need closure to close. It will remind you that silence doesn't mean you've been abandoned. It means you've been invited to return to yourself. Sometimes the silence is their journey too. Maybe they're growing. Maybe they're learning lessons they couldn't learn beside you. And that's okay. Because if there's one thing energy understands, it's timing. When something is truly aligned, silence doesn't destroy it. It strengthens it. It refines the bond until both souls are ready to meet again or ready to move on peacefully. So instead of fearing the quiet, learn to trust it. Treat silence like sacred soil, the place where your next version is being planted, the place where wisdom takes root, the place where peace becomes louder than longing. Because silence isn't the end of your story, It's the pause between chapters that gives meaning to the words that follow. Write this in the comments, my friends. I trust the silence. Let the world see it. Let yourself feel it. Because silence isn't the universe ignoring you. It's the universe preparing you. And stay with me, because next, we're stepping into something even deeper. The unseen space where two souls still call out to each other, even when the world stays quiet. Number 6. When souls call each other in silence. Real connections don't always speak, they resonate. Have you ever felt that sudden tug in your chest, like someone you once loved just crossed your thoughts at the exact same moment you crossed theirs? You're sitting quietly, maybe sipping coffee, scrolling your phone, or driving alone, and then, out of nowhere, their image flashes before you. You feel that strange warmth in your chest, almost like an invisible touch. That, my friends, is not coincidence. That's resonance. That's the silent conversation between two souls that still recognize each other across time and distance. You see, we live in a world obsessed with messages, calls, notifications, and constant noise. But the soul doesn't speak through words. It speaks through energy. It whispers through emotions that come uninvited, through dreams that feel too vivid, through random songs that suddenly hit you in the gut. And sometimes that's not your imagination. It's connection, still alive, still moving, still humming on a frequency that logic can't decode. Imagine two pianos in different rooms. If you play a note on one, the same note will softly vibrate on the other. No touch, no sound traveling between them, just resonance. That's what happens between two souls that once harmonized deeply. When one stirs, the other feels the echo. That's the mystery of real energy. And maybe that's why, even after silence, even after endings, you still sense them. But here's the truth that Stoicism reminds us of. You cannot control resonance, only response. You can't decide who thinks of you, who dreams of you, or who still feels your energy. But you can decide what that energy means to you now. You can let it make you anxious, always wondering what they're doing. Or you can let it make you grateful, knowing that you once connected in a way most people never do. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So when your thoughts drift to them, be mindful of the color you're painting with. Don't let it be the gray of longing. Let it be the gold of gratitude. Let your thoughts be gentle, not obsessive. Let them be reminders of love's depth, not wounds that bleed in silence. Because here's the hard truth, folks. Not every spiritual connection is meant to be physical forever. Sometimes your soul calls theirs not to reunite, but to release. Not every vibration means you're meant to cross paths again. Sometimes it's just a final echo, a cosmic goodbye that both hearts can feel but never say aloud. You might say, "But I feel them so strongly, it must mean something." It does mean something. It means you have a heart that's still open. It means your energy hasn't turned bitter. It means love didn't break you. It expanded you. That's power, not weakness, because while most people close off after loss, you're still able to feel deeply. And that, my friends, is what makes you rare. It's also what makes this process hard, because when souls call out in silence, it can feel like the universe is teasing you. You sense them, you think about them, and yet nothing happens. No message, no closure, just feeling. But that's where the Stoic truth steps in. Detachment isn't about not feeling, it's about not needing. You can acknowledge the pull without letting it drag you back into confusion. You can feel their energy without losing your own. Think of it this way. When two stars burn close together, their gravity affects each other's orbit. But if one star moves on, the other must stabilize itself or risk spinning out of control. That's you right now. You're learning how to hold your own orbit, even while feeling their pull. It's not easy, but it's how strength is born. And who knows, maybe they do feel it too. Maybe at 2 a.m., when they're lying awake, something inside them whispers your name just as yours whispers theirs. Maybe they look at the same moon and feel the same ache. But whether they do or don't, you must remember this. Your peace isn't dependent on their recognition. Your peace is your responsibility. So the next time that familiar thought of them passes through your mind, don't panic, don't romanticize it. Just smile and say, I feel you, but I'm free. Because real connection doesn't demand possession. It simply reminds you that once your soul vibrated in tune with something extraordinary. Write this in the comments, my friends. I feel, but I'm free. Let that be your affirmation tonight. Show yourself that you can honor the energy without being owned by it. And stay with me, because next we're uncovering the hidden reason behind all of this. The lesson that person's presence left inside you. The message your mind has been trying to reveal all along. Number 7. The lesson hidden in the thought. People don't stay in your mind to haunt you, they stay to teach you. Every time that same person crosses your thoughts, no matter how much you try to move on, distract yourself, or bury the feeling, there's something deeper happening. Something your soul is trying to tell you. Because if someone keeps showing up in your mind without communication, there's a lesson hiding beneath that repetition. Thoughts are not accidents. They are messengers. Imagine your mind like a classroom, my friends. Every experience is a teacher, and every thought is a student raising its hand, saying, "You haven't learned this yet." The reason that one person still lives rent-free in your head isn't always because of love. It's because they came with a lesson that you haven't fully understood. Maybe they came to teach you about boundaries. Maybe they came to awaken your self-worth. Maybe they came to show you what unconditional love looks like, or what it doesn't. But here's what most people do. They avoid the lesson. They replay the memory without reflection. They keep wondering why instead of asking what. Why do I still think about them? Keeps you stuck. But what is this thought trying to show me? Sets you free. That's Stoic wisdom right there. Transformation through awareness. You see, life has a way of repeating lessons until you finally learn them. That's why the same type of person keeps appearing in different faces, different body, same energy. The universe doesn't send you someone new until you've mastered the lesson the last one carried. So if they still appear in your thoughts, maybe it's not about them anymore. It's about you, the version of you that met them, the version of you that loved them, the version of you that lost yourself in them. The thought is not about missing them, it's about remembering you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." And that's what Stoicism teaches. Don't run from pain, use it. Every time your mind drifts back to that person, use it as a mirror. What part of you still needs healing? What part of you did you give away that you now need to reclaim? Because until you take back what you lost in that connection, your mind will keep replaying the movie. It's not obsession, it's unfinished business. Now here's the truth most people never face. Sometimes the lesson is not closure with them, it's closure with yourself. You keep waiting for them to come back and explain, to give you the ending you deserve. But what if the real ending is you realizing that you no longer need it? What if the closure you've been waiting for from them is actually supposed to come from within you? That's when you finally graduate from that emotional classroom. And maybe, just maybe, the thought of them is there to remind you that you're capable of loving deeply, even when it didn't last. That you can feel without bitterness. That you can let someone go and still be grateful that your paths crossed. That's emotional mastery, my friends. That's how you turn pain into wisdom. Because the Stoics never said not to love, they just said not to lose yourself in the process. So the next time their image flashes through your mind, don't get angry at yourself. Don't think, ugh, not again. Smile and say, thank you for reminding me who I've become, because you're not who you were when you met them. You're wiser now, stronger, quieter, and maybe, finally, at peace. The thought isn't them calling you, it's your soul showing you how far you've come since them. Think of it like the last note of a song fading into silence. You don't curse the silence. You appreciate the melody that led you here. That's the beauty of growth. You don't forget the music, but you stop needing to replay it to feel alive. So if someone still lives in your mind, don't see it as torment, see it as transition. You're evolving. The energy is closing its circle. You're moving from connection to comprehension. That's not weakness, that's awakening. Write this in the comments, my friends. I learned, I grew, I'm free. Let the world see it. Let yourself feel it, because that's your declaration, that you turned emotional weight into inner wisdom. And before you go, if this message spoke to your heart, press that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Because this is what growth looks like, not forgetting the story, but becoming the person who finally understands it. Remember this, if they still live in your mind, it's not because you're stuck. It's because your soul wanted to make sure the lesson was never forgotten. And now, my friends, you've learned it.